Outside of Spider-Man, Sony hasn't had much box office luck with its other web-oriented characters. Will Madam Web change this trend? Cassandra Webb, a paramedic in Manhattan who develops the power to see the future, realizes she can use that insight to change it. Forced to confront revelations about her past, she forges a relationship with three young women bound for powerful destinies, if they can all survive a deadly present. So we've all heard the joke about researching spiders in the Amazon. Thankfully, the film redacted part of that for the final product. We got Dakota Johnson, Sweeney, Isabela Merced, Celeste O'Connor, Tahar Rahim, Adam Scott, and Zosia Mamet. Now, Johnson is Cassandra Webb, the paramedic who discovers that she can kind of see the future, but she has zero clue of how it happens or how to control it. Kind of like the greatest American hero there. But she has this vision that three young women are going to be attacked by a dude in black that can climb walls and then ceilings. Now, in another movie, we'd liken him to Spider-Man. Not in this film, though. The movie takes a while to find its groove. There's a slow start, but we get decent development because of that. And that's something that's typically lacking in recent superhero stories. We're just kind of thrust into their lives and then supposed to know everything about them or pick up vague context as it comes along. The story spends the first key moments to establish how Cassandra will come to get her powers. And as nice as this is to get the foundation built out, the next portion of the movie, though, it rushes through an introduction of Cassandra, including her experiencing some of her powers, before then giving us details on how things work. Now, while it does feel too quick at times, I do appreciate how we're learning right alongside with Cassandra. And as a result of Cassandra having premonitions or visions, we're shown the same sequence multiple times, sometimes 3 or 4 times. Now, some of it's accomplished well because of how each scene builds on itself, but a lot of it feels like we're watching Edge of Tomorrow without the fast and efficient story editing. There's also this huge repeat of a scene towards the final third of the film. Now, the context makes sense, but we didn't need to be shown as much as we did, since it's not like this was a series and we're shown something in episode 1 and then they're trying to remind us what happened when we get to episode 10. There was a relatively short period of time between the scenes, so the repetition, it was tiresome. Now, something I thought the film accomplished well was the transitions during Cassandra's visions. We're snapped seamlessly between realities, but also in this jarring manner, so that we kind of experience the jolt that Cassandra feels. I mean, these were abrupt, but they were also effective. Now, the trio of Sweeney, Merced, and O'Connor, they play the teenage girls Cassandra is attempting to protect. They're also the 3 that will become some sort of web-slinging heroes. But, and I really do emphasize but here, if you're looking forward to just seeing a lot of them in their suits, you're going to be disappointed. We barely get any scenes showcasing them as those costumed saviors. Now, at first, it kind of bugged me that we don't get much background on the 3 girls. But this is a Madam Web movie, so we just need to get enough info on them to really just get a sense of who they are. And I liked the chemistry that they finally achieved, but it does take a bit to get there. And because this is a movie about Johnson's Cassandra, she embraces the snark and the guardedness of the character, keeping most way beyond arm's length with just this protective wall around her. Now, this fits for her character, especially the aversion to connection or relationships, but this also provides a good area for growth. And I think it's important to say that I'm talking about the movie story itself, not anything that comes from the comics or that was canon before this. We also get an excellent soundtrack to put us into the era. If you're a fan of Four Non Blondes, Deep Blue Something, Meredith Brooks, Britney Spears, Tiffany, maybe the Cranberries, you're going to dig what's playing throughout the movie. And there's also a tiny inclusion of Adam Scott as Ben Parker, and it's fun but odd. The story skirts around him becoming the uncle of Peter. But I like Scott in the role, and I would love to see more of him in a Spider-Man origin movie. Okay, so I've hit upon pretty much everything positive that I can say about the movie, and now I just need to get to the things that really didn't work. At the beginning of the movie, for some unknown reason, there are a lot of unnecessary zooms. These happen at random times, sometimes zooming in and then zooming in again. Sometimes the camera just pulls out from a shot, again with zero context or reason. It felt like a lot of the opening sequence hadn't fully been edited and contributed to a very rough start visually. Now, this issue seems to go away after the opening scenes, so it's just that's good, but it makes them stand out even more as odd. Now, some of the special effects are decent, but most are blurry and fast, so it's hard to discern what's happening. And in some areas, especially as Johnson enters into her mind web, they're pretty terrible, losing any sense of realism. These portions look completely fake and very obviously computer generated, including Johnson herself. The action scenes, they're frenetic and fast, which does add excitement, but it also makes it easy to hide all of the poor effects within those scenes. And really, the visuals, they just become a jumbled mess of a blur. People and objects, they're being tossed about, preventing us from seeing any sort of stunt work or fight choreography clearly. I mean, it made many of the scenes feel pointless, even though there was a crap ton of action happening on the screen. And for the script, a lot of the dialogue is plain and simple, even delivered in a way that seems like the actors don't believe what they're saying. And this mostly happens with Tahar Rahim. He's given dumbed down lines, making him come across as a dim-witted, lackluster villain. I mean, he had several cringy lines that felt like they were written by a kid. And then, looking at him as a villain, there's so much that's skipped on him, creating just a very thin character. I mean, we understand he's the bad guy, but as we go from the beginning of the movie to when we see him later on, there's no information on how he got where he is and how he's accomplished what he has. He becomes just another meager superhero villain. And really, that's a shame because he has some awesome abilities. But because of how the action is filmed, like I'd said before, we also don't get clear views of most of what he's doing. I mean, think of some of the Spider-Man movies where we follow the character swinging through the city. Some sequences are similar here, but we don't get any of those cool visuals, let alone smooth actions of his villainous pursuit. So overall, Madame Web has some good characters, but fails to capitalize on their development, leaving them thin and undefined. Johnson in the lead role can be likable with her sarcastic wit, but also her ability for character growth. While the plot has some intriguing aspects and some of the editing works to enhance the experience, the production is hampered by poor special effects and even worse action sequences, marred by blurry and indiscernible stunts. Unfortunately, this doesn't use tactics that made Spider-Man films successful, instead choosing scattered storytelling and thin characterizations to craft an unforgettable superhero story. There's no sex or nudity, some profanity, and some violence. I give Madame Web 2.5 out of 5 couches. So what's a superhero or comic book character that you would like to see in a film? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.